This is the GTM AI podcast, episode number 31, where I get to deep dive into why adoption of AI is crucial in today's world with the CEO and co-founder of GAI Insights, Paul Baier. This is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to source for learning how to use AI in companies, teams, and in your individual workflow. Business impact over learning tools. Welcome, everyone. It is I, Coach K, and today I have a guy that I've been chasing. I should say we've been chasing each other on the calendars for a while. Paul Baier, so excited to have you. How are you, sir?
Good, Jonathan. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you. So we were just riffing off before, and you just tell me all the things you're doing, but I just want to introduce you as the man behind, let me make sure I get this right. Good thing I can edit this out. CEO and co-founder of GAI Insights. Fascinating. By the way, I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to make sure I have a little intro about you before. So this is going to be me just talking. So welcome to the show. Really excited to have you. You have a unique point of view that I really want to dive in with you. But before we start talking about nerdy AI stuff, which is the stuff I love, I want to know more about you, and not from the lens of like your resume, but more of like your journey into how the heck you got to be where you are and why this is even a thing that you want to do or you're passionate about. So tell me the goods behind the scene of LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you the high hard. I grew up in Ohio, and I did a bunch of entrepreneur stuff when I was in teenager. Went to college, and worked a little bit. And I said, I don't know if the best opportunity in my life hit me in the face with a baseball bat if I'd recognize it. And I'm like, opportunity evaluation, how do you do that? And so I probably should go to business school, and certainly all those smarty pants at these big business schools could do it. Well, it's a lot harder than it is, a lot more art than science. But I've spent the last 25 years of my career on the vendor side and venture-backed B2B enterprise companies. And mostly what I enjoy is the magic of you and I at the whiteboard saying, here are the two needs. And you say, we should connect this with a dot. And then 12 months later, customers are paying us $1 million for it. And 5 years later, they're buying it. So that kind of idea, the revenue cycle, I like a bit and have been through a lot. I spent relative to this conversation 5 years at a company called called First Fuel Software. We raised $70 million to use traditional AI to analyze buildings, target store, and figure out if you never went into the building, could you actually figure out if it's using like electricity efficient? And I thought it was a crazy idea. But we had 30 engineers, 5 PhD data scientists, 12 subject matter experts. And after 3 or 4 years, we could do 172 building types well. So that really helped me understand traditional AI. And then when GPT hit, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is this thing? And I'm calling up all the AI experts at MIT that I work with, and they're like, Paul, we're blown away. So it was very clear early on that this was a transformative tool to add business value.
When did you really start diving into it? I'm just curious. Like when obviously when it launched, but when did you actually start seeing it in your own workflow as a assistant or something you want to use?
Yeah, I really started getting into I saw it in December, and after the holidays 2 years ago in January, we started doing, I just couldn't believe it. So I started doing weekly calls on Zoom with engineers I knew. And after 2 or 3 weeks, people said, Paul, this is really interesting. We should stick this up in Meetup. And we were thinking, we just stuck it up in Meetup. And Chris, the next week, it was like 85 people showed up. So we ended up having one of the largest chat GPT users groups early on, back in January, February. People thought this was a cheat tool. And what really got my thing is when people started showing up there with all these great use cases. And then I felt like the product manager at OpenAI. I'm like, really? You saved 4 hours on RFP? I don't believe it. Pull up your blog right now.
Show me.
You created 100 blog posts in 2 days? I don't believe it. And it was really clear then that people are showing up with non-technical people showing up very real use cases on blogs and job search and RFPs, that this was very real. And that's what really led us really figuring out there's an opportunity here.
I love it. So tell me a little bit more about GAI Insights. Tell me the scoop. What do you guys like to focus on, and what's your specialty?
Yeah, so we aspire to be the Gartner of Gen AI. We target the AI leader companies. This is the VP who's been assigned the budget, typically $2 to $10 million. They're presenting at board meetings, their careers on the line. They're double booked all day. That McKinsey, and they're spinning up all their executives. Every one of the vendors said they can do everything. No one on their team can help them figure it out. Gartner and others are still figuring out. And then the other area of ours are the AI vendors that are trying to understand what the customers need and trying to understand how to break through the incredible noise right now because the vendor claim inflation is so wide that it's just
Yes.
overlapping everything here. So we serve both sides of that market.
So you mentioned something before when you're talking about different companies, like you have a massive organization and it had to do with, do I buy, do I build, what do I do here? And you also said it came down to upskilling or customer service. So I'd love to have you dive into me more like, what's the conversation you're having with leaders now around like that, either upskilling our employees or doing it for a product or for customer service or something else? What's the conversation like?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate. We've been, oh, let's just probably keep track. Maybe 50, 100 presentations at board levels, public companies, private companies, PE firms, VC firms, executive teams, large companies, small companies. And after a while, we've seen enough where the curve is pretty constant. 5% of the people in that room love this or autodidactics and are off and running. The other
Mhm.
30% are skeptical and really want to slow thing down, and the middle's kind of trying to figure it out here. So the first thing we tell boards and we tell management teams, you have to have a group meeting to get alignment on urgency because nothing else matters after that.
Right.
Until you actually get all the opinions, because I've never seen a topic where people know so little about, but boy, do they have a strong opinion
Have
on it.
opinions? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we got a whole process we walk to people in it. But one of the things I tell boards, and I can get away with it because I'm a consultant, they can throw me out, is that, I think we all agree as a board, as a management team, it would be irresponsible to hire someone to be a VP who's never used a browser. Irresponsible to have someone opine on an IT capital budget request if they've never used a browser. I assert in this moment of Gen AI, it'd be equally as irresponsible to opine on Gen AI if you haven't personally used ChatGPT for 3 hours. And I don't care if it's fly fishing or the recipes for your kids. It's transfer.
Yeah.
You can't understand what India and China are like until you go there. So don't have an opinion on China and India until you go there. Please don't have an opinion on it until you actually understand the fabric of this. Learn by doing and understand that this is a moment in time, and this is just not a other technology that needs to be pushed down and have the IT guy come up and present what the plan is.
One of your podcast highlights I saw on LinkedIn was this very notion of executives need to have some sort of experience on it before they can start to say what they should or should not do. Because it's hard to even have a concept until you're like, whoa, I like you could do that. Whether it's a poem about cats in space, like it doesn't matter. Like whatever it is crazy. Tell me more about dive into more of what you just told me before the call around upskilling versus customer success. You were talking about like where people releasing budgets. What are you seeing
Yeah,
in the
so
market?
usually, yeah, so we help people get urgency. So it's not urgent for
Yeah.
everyone, urgent for some. We've got a whole WINS framework, WINS, words, images, numbers, and sounds. So it's a subset of knowledge work. But let's be really clear. Part of this knowledge worker, for instance, in entertainment in Hollywood was a real strike. That was a real strike for 7.5 months. It was no
Right.
BS. It was around ChatGPT 3.5. It matters less for a steel company in a digital world for to imagine a lot. So once you get urgency, then you got to start
Yeah.
figuring out projects of the area. And most companies have 50, 100 different projects. One of those often is, oh, we should upskill our employees. And there's now I think at least 10 credible research things that will show you can get anywhere between 20 and 40% task improvement, which is breathtaking. It's almost irresponsible not to include that in coding and other areas here. The challenge is how do you learn it? And you can't learn swimming by watching a YouTube video. In our experience, you can't learn Gen AI by just reading an article. You need to go get experiential learning. Unless you're autodidactic, you typically need some level of instructor training here, but that
Right.
costs money. And how do you do that if I have an organization of 5,000 employees here? So we were talking about earlier, we've got a handful of companies that say, great, I've got $2 million allocated to Gen AI. Do I do that to upskill my 5,000 employees? Or do I do that to improve customer service on my 15,000 calls I'm getting a day in the call center? And
Right.
99% of the time, the better answer for the company is on the call center.
You think that's because it's a clear ROI and because the other side hasn't been proven out, or because you legit think there's more value on the customer service side versus the upskilling?
I think it's a couple different things. The CFO is going to say, show me the value.
Yeah.
So if I spent $3 million upskilling 5,000 employees, do I 15% of them go away? And who are they? Well,
Yeah.
versus the call center, you can actually measure calls going down, You can measure
Right.
NPS if a customer is more excited. You can actually see calls in different languages. In Portuguese, maybe you didn't have good Portuguese. You can actually see the shortened time. You can take a CSR rep who typically have 20 to 40% turnover, and they might have 3 to 6 month ramp time. You get that down to 2 to 3 months. So you can see actual value that creates to the company that
Mhm.
a traditional CFO can and CEO will validate. There's clearly benefits to employees, but it's much more nebulous. It's so great. I get 10%. Does that mean I raise the quotas for all my reps by 10%? Does that
Right.
mean that all the coders get 10%? So it's just harder for organizations to do, particularly when there's not alignment on it, or particularly when there's budget jealousy, or particularly when you really got some politics going around what these projects are. Because one of the things that's really important for the Gen AI enthusiasts is you need to have a good first project because they will come and take your
Right.
budget. It's not. So you get too cocked and doing stuff where you're increasing your own KPIs or you don't have a hard dollar ROI. The CFO signs off in 12 months. You may lose some of your budget the next budget cycle.
Yeah, it seems, and this is something I've realized more and more in AI is that I'm able to see things, track things, do things that I could have never have done beforehand because of AI be able to be automated in context, in right time, right people for right reasons. And like what you said with a call center or customer service, like they track everything in those places, whereas like with a sales place, they don't necessarily, except for quota. So there's a lot of ethereal things you just don't track. Quality of CRM data entry that could be automated with an AI or whatever the use case is. So I think I find myself when I'm consulting companies is that they're in this space where they're like, we affect things that no one measures because you can't. It's like almost impossible. Do you feel like there's going to be more of that to where it will start to sway over to the productivity lane, or do you think AI? Because a year from now, AI is going to be in a whole new world than it was a year ago from before now. That it could have capabilities to, I don't want to say take over jobs, but do tasks that would be or currently half of it someone's job. Does that make sense? Do you see it going the more the upskilling way at some point?
I think it really depends on your industry. I think half the customers, I don't know how it looks like. I don't know how many customer service reps there are in the world, 15 million, 50 million.
Yeah.
Half of them are going to be gone in 4 years. It's clear as day. There
Yeah.
used to be a full industry of writing blog posts for companies for $100 a blog post.
Right.
That's gone. We're talking about maybe 20, 30% of entry level coding jobs being gone now, or certainly within a year here. So I think there's certainly segments of jobs that are going away here. It also
Yeah.
varied by two different things. One is your industry. So legal, for instance, is going through a tremendous amount of change. The second is your ownership. Private equity in particular knows that there's ways to rip out cost. So we've got one company we're working with, private equity in there. They do business process outsourcing in India and everyone else, 12,000 employees. They did 4 Gen AI projects and they're like, that's it. We got it. 3,000 are coming out. There is no discussion. There's not a
Yeah.
discussion because they know they can get the thing here. Now, that's one particular company with a particularly aggressive thing here, but there a lot is going to happen on that. Now, I think when you get to the, oh, let's upskill for upskill's sake, that's where the creativity needs to come from. That needs to be budgets from innovation budgets or from continuing education budgets or for companies that are realizing that this is the biggest career accelerant ever for talent. So if you want to keep and attract young talent, you need to have a robust, safe lane, and you
Right.
need that young talent realize, hey, I actually can see my way to going from manager to director and get Gen AI experience because I know to get the director level, many companies now, you have to have been involved in Gen AI project here. So there's a ways that I think that you can justify it on a talent attraction and retention in a way that you can't do it with pure productivity numbers with the CFO.
You mentioned a really good point with the jobs being eliminated. Like that, you could say that with some graphic designers around Mid Journey's capabilities or Flux or these other image generator type things. And when Sora comes out with OpenAI and video creation, that's going to be crazy. What's going to change? Do you think though that like the Industrial Revolution, that I think it was somebody from OpenAI that said that he feels like there's going to be more jobs needed as a result of AI versus all the jobs it may eliminate. Do you see that same pattern where all these coders get eliminated? We'll just have another opportunity to become prompt engineers or whatever the case might be on the other side, or what are you seeing?
I think it depends. I think I think in it's a problem with all these economist things is it's and I grew up as an economist. Studied almost became a PhD in econ. It's
Right.
great aggregate amounts, but let's be really clear. I grew up in Ohio, so Youngstown, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, it was gutted by China and NAFTA, and it's never coming back here.
Yeah.
And so to long for that. So I think the bigger question is, what are those attributes of those people that can navigate this embrace the pace type of thing here? And I think there's a handful of, are you inquisitive? Are you a fast learner? Are you comfortable redoing, learning new technology? Are you autodidactic? Can you think about systems problems here that will allow many of those coders to find all these new opportunities out there?
Hmm.
Many other not many, but other people, they're very systematic. I learned it book this way. I wasn't taught at Purdue how to do prompt engineering. I have to go take a class. And I think those people are going to have to change or they're going to have a much harder time finding a job. Now we know there's huge shortage of jobs in AI right now. We cannot find enough people who are AI familiar with the AI tools, develop AI-based videos. The AI search
Right.
engine optimization LLM is a massive space here. So there's a tremendous amount of new jobs, but they require learning and acquisitive skill and continued learning mentality that I think is going to be what the workforce is in the future here for people with higher wage jobs.
So I'm curious. I'm going to ask you a question that kind of will lead into another one. But how do you, as a CEO of GAI Insights, how do you use AI, you personally, on a day to day basis?
Oh yeah, my co-founder John Sweetgrad, we were challenging each other all the time. Have you asked the robots? What did the robots say? And yeah, we've done this hard for now 17, 18 months, and change management is hard. And we're
Yep.
doing lots of different things on my phone. You won't be able to see it. I have an Apple phone. I have in the front page on the front page here five different models: Pi, ChatGPT, or Perplexity. Use this all the time in here. We are constantly asking each other here, what did AI say on that? That's a good idea. Did you get AI critique it? Because the mentality you need to get to is that we now. That's why I think Ethan Mollick's term on co-intelligence is way better than robots and others. It
Yep.
really the equal co-intelligence with us all the time that we need to be taking advantage of. We have 1,000 interns at our fingertips and every possible things here. Why are we thinking that our little monkey brain is so much better than they are for coming up with a script, a beginning script for a podcast or go to market plan or
Yep.
critique 150-page closing documents here? So that's the first and foremost is have the tools easily available at your fingertips. Second is to have a culture where you're constantly asking other and celebrating who's using our robots. Third is you have to find learning communities. And we have a learning community every Monday night that's public. Everyone's welcome to. There's a learning lab. We also have learning communities inside, and we encourage people to have learning buddies. And what happens on a learning buddy is I have an obligation to tell you, and you have an obligation to tell me when you find something new. Oh my gosh, I
Mm.
just learned this. So this
Yep.
idea that you celebrate and get into the culture, the norm, how we move Gen AI from a parlor trick to an interesting meeting to the cultural norm is hard. And I think you've got to use all the different all different tactics of good behavior change management to do that.
Tell me more about the Monday night learning lab thing. Tell me about that. Is it
Oh,
something
sure.
you have
Yeah.
to be
It's
signed up for? Or let me,
no, yeah, sign up and meet up. It's free. It's a Zoom call. We call it Learning Lab. It's
cool.
Monday, 7. It's always an hour. First 5 minutes are some intros. Then we have typical, we call it a showcase. It's about 20, 25 minutes. It's usually a demo or a technical conversation. And the last 10 minutes are open mic. You can ask questions. We have 3,000 people in the community. We get 80 to 150 people from 7 different countries. And it's interestingly, it's about 60% are technical and pretty tech PhD kind of direct data science, and 40% are business. And I'm just baffled at it. So I go ask the technical question, what are you doing here? You got a PhD from MIT. And they said, Paul, you understand, I know this one area really well and deep. I love coming to meetings so I can see all the use cases that are going
Yep.
out in areas. And then the business people come and say, boy, can you really do image to text or whatever the thing is? And they get a technical perspective. So it
Yeah.
really is a great way. And it's been fascinating. We only want to do a couple months, but people keep coming back. And it's almost like an AA meeting here. One person introduced himself. I said, I'm Paul Baier. I'm a Gen AI addict, but I
Yeah.
love some of these things here. It's at dinner time in the Monday, but if you want to get learning going and continue to learn here, you have to find learning communities in our view. And this is one way we do it for the community. And anyone's welcome to. You're welcome to sign up.
I'm gonna have to start coming now because that's my people there. I get to nerd out. Tell me what is the from either from that or from a company you're working with. What has been one of the most I'll say top 2 interesting use cases of Gen AI that's, like, beyond just prompting ChatGPT. What have you seen that's, like, fascinated you?
I think there's a couple different categories. I think ROI is important, and we've seen just some massive ROI on
Mhm.
contracts. So some of these large companies have we know that unstructured data is a killer app, extracting value of that. So we actually go through 5 or 10,000 contracts, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, which we've written about here, and
Yeah.
finding $10 million of savings. Boy, that's real. That's well beyond anyone's ever conceit. And that's more than just do job descriptions or do something in marketing. And so that is one, I think it's pretty basic use case, but I think the prevalence of it is surprising. The other use cases that we see out there is when, and we really encourage in some of the training we do, is we continue to see people underestimating the cognitive ability of this. And
Yeah.
one of the challenges is treating it like a tool that we think that our monkey brain is smarter than the shovel. It's just a tool. We're not thinking about this as a co-intelligence. So here's a 160-page closing document for a Fortune 500 company acquisition. This is on the internet. I am at this M&A conference of 400 lawyers. I put
Mm.
it in ChatGPT. This probably cost $50,000 of legal fees, just this thing here. Critique this legal document. Tell me the 4 biggest risks on it. Tell me the 5 ways to make it better here, and give me proposed languages from it. Like that. Now we have some for the subject matter experts here. Flip it around. You're a $1 billion investment fund. You're very proud of your
Uh-huh.
investment thesis. All right, upload the investment thesis and tell me the reasons that it's weak here. So I'm giving you a general answer, but the general use case is taking something that's considered very sophisticated and hard, challenging it with the real big person, big boy question that you would ask in a meeting here. And
Right.
9 times out of 10, in our experience, the experts will be surprised. That's actually pretty good, or I hadn't thought of that, or it's so, and that just shows people forget and remind everyone, Jonathan, this is the worst AI for the rest of our lives. And it's still
That's right.
blowing us away.
I know. Yeah, I saw a quote from a guy on Twitter back in October of 2023, where he said he was talking to one of the OpenAI developers or something. He said, if ChatGPT 4, because it didn't have 4.0 mini yet, if we stopped all progression on ChatGPT 4, it'd be 2 years before we figured out how all the ways we could use it. And I was like, holy Hannah, that was back in August or October of 23. It's
So, I
crazy.
mean, it's 100, our thing we say, we have 100 feet of technical capability today. We only understand how much 30% of it. That
Right.
thing is almost doubling every year.
Yeah.
And so the scarcity is people, the scarcity is applying it, the scarcity is not technical capability.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wanted to bring up your cool event coming up here on October 7th and 8th. You have the Generative AI World coming up in Boston. Tell me
Mhm.
more. I want to hear the deets.
Great. Yeah, no, this is a fabulous conference. It's designed for on the business. So it's not just speeds and feeds, but how do we actually drive value on it? It's really aimed at the board level, C minus 3, kind of on the director level.
Mhm.
And it's dealing with a lot of the questions that companies have. People who are in production, what have you learned? How do I prioritize 65 different proposed use cases here? How do I manage my board on this? How do I figure out what investment level is? Am I investing too little or too much? How do I do
Yeah,
change management for 5,000 employees here? How do I actually think about real fakes and security risk here? So all those kind of questions here, we're talking about practitioners. So we're having people actually been through that, who actually have been to the future, been in production, which is only about
yeah,
10% thing, coming back and telling us that, oh my gosh, we only allocated 5% of our budget to ongoing management and monitoring of this probabilistic outcome. We actually done 30%. Or we thought we had switchability of large language models designed in a product and we didn't. Or we
yeah,
really thought the break point of going from open to close on a cost basis was 1 million transactions. It's actually 500,000. And that cost us a $10 million mistake or overage on that. So those kind of really practical things is what this 2 day
yeah.
conference was focused on.
Is it more on the building out your own products? Or, because I know you usually said like change management, but is it more like internal, how the company using AI for their own products or workflows focus?
No, it's more, I think so we've seen 3 general, top uses. You can use it for individual employee productivity, we're covering that. You can
Right,
use it for process automation, customer service, we're covering that. And then
right.
third, you can put it actually in your physical product like a John Deere tractor or a software product, and we're not dealing with that third one. It's a really important one, but we're not dealing with the third one.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic I'd love to tap into with you. I think it'd be a fun time. With what you just mentioned before around some of your favorite use cases, looking forward, and I know this is like light years in AI world, but let's just say 6 months or even a year. Like, where do you see things going, or if we keep adopting, keep going the speed we are, like, what do you see happening in the next year that we aren't there yet right now?
Well, I think let me break it down 2 things, John. I think one on the so one, I think in our simple brains, this is just a career accelerant digitization here. The
Yep.
thing that most companies have, the companies take one of 4 strategies. I'm going to be leader, fast follower, slow follower, no follower here. It's so clear to us now, more clear than it was even 6 months ago, that you learn by doing. And since this is general purpose technology, once you get into projects here, more opportunities and can better apply it. So the
Yeah.
leaders who are doing this are going to get further ahead of the slow followers. So we actually believe that slow follower in some industries is an absolute loser strategy. So if you're in an industry that in the crucible, for instance, which means that more than 10% of your revenues in the next 2 years going to be impacted by Gen AI, entertainment, software, outsourcing, professional services here, and you're doing
Mhm.
a slow follower, we think you're at a competitive disadvantage. Your stock should be shorted. Your P firm should sell you because it's you're getting further along. So that's one on the
Right.
learning things here. I think on the technology side, we're very bullish on the audio interface here. Where audio is how we're going to do it. Our kids are going to laugh at us. Our grandkids are going to laugh at us. Say, when you applied a job, you actually had to type something in. You know, you
Right.
interviewed here. The fact that people have started playing with things like character AI and others, where I love driving down the street and you can just talk to Plato, or you just start asking questions and getting
Yep.
back. So that the idea that the green screen environment we have right now, menu pulls down, typing here is the green screen, and we're moving to an audio-based one, I think is really impactful, and it's gonna particularly come from these billions of phones in the second half of next year that's gonna have AI chips in them, from, Apple and others here. That's the second thing. I think the third thing, small models will continue to make a progress on there, and I think we're gonna see a real bifurcation of these
Yep.
foundation models that are going from 1 billion to 10 billion to 50 billion, just a handful of companies, to much more smaller ones that are more cost effective, sometimes use different chips, sometimes are open source, and they can use lots of specialized ones here. Those are 3, and the 4th trend is we call it the SEO bloodbath. Gartner's
Yeah.
predicting 25% of search is going away from Google. I never use Google anymore for research. We use Perplexity. Everyone in our community is at that one. And if you actually start using tools like, and if you're familiar, if hub.gg, do
Yep.
you know that tool?
Mhm.
Wonderful tool. I just today I was helping a small business and they were asking us what small business payroll software. I said, well, let's ask the robots. So
Right. Ask
what
them. Yep.
ask the robots, give me one answer, defend your answer, and 5 out of 6 robots like Gusto in seconds.
Yep.
And that is gonna catch on and move, and a $600 billion SEO monopoly that's been around for 30 years and hasn't changed much, but is instrumental from product discovery and marketing and lead gen for company is going through a massive change, and companies
Yeah.
aren't fully realizing this yet in our experience. So those are the 4 or 5 major trends we're seeing out there.
I thought a lot about the technology itself just ramping up and going so fast and thinking about how the heck humans could be keeping up. But I love your point of view on the companies that actually will. So even though we may not be able to keep up with AI in general, the people who do their best are going to go way faster than not, which after 3 or 4 months is going to make a big difference. So I love that point of view. I'll ask one more question and I'll let you know because I know it's late there. When I talk to leaders, C-suite leaders and others in the VP level, even when they start using AI, a big concern they have is around trust. How do I trust the information coming out of it because of all this world of hallucinations or different things coming out of it? And to me, I'm like, part of the answer is prompting, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you usually say to people when you say, like, how do I know I can trust this in the arms of whoever or customer service or whatever use case?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think one of the things we took a while to learn through all the customer training is the first to cement on 2 major types of software. There's
Yeah.
software that has deterministic software. This is Excel. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 100% explainable, 100% predictable output for one input. Then we have a whole nother category. It's called probabilistic, and that's where this fits in. They're just
Yeah.
different tools. The great one is great for accounting. Don't use it for creating scripts. Gen AI fits into this here. So this notion that we have to have everything perfect. One of the things that it's human nature is, oh my gosh, it's hallucinations. I said, just stop here. You have 1,500 people in your call center. Are you saying that every single answer that comes from a human is perfect?
Mhm. Mhm.
But what are we talking about? So that's the first thing to understand that here. I think the second thing is for people to really understand, if you're already asking that question, you've already skipped a step. And the step that we said is your first learning step. And I said, why aren't you learning? And most people aren't doing this because they aren't even aware of it. Why aren't you doing zero risk projects for less than $5,000 on your own data using no code LLM tools? There's a
Right.
bunch of them like custom GPT or custom GPT AI, chat based, and others, where you can take 50 or 100 PDFs from your public website, put it up there, get a chat bot that only answers from your own data and start the learning thing here. And then we can debate if we want to have $150 million as our thing here. So most people are skipping these easy learning steps that have high ROI in learning, high organizational retention for people, high organizational alignment pack, and then getting in this intergalactic debate on should we spend $500,000 having an open source tool and building our own
Yeah.
language. We've skipped way too many steps in our view. So we say slow down. Let's go back to the beginning. Identify a rebel, fund the rebels here. Let's get the learning organization here, and let's learn a lot. And next, because the sweet spot is the Venn diagram overlap, where people understand your business and your business problem and a little bit of AI. That's the goal. The goal isn't to have our own large language model yet. That's the first goal. Let's get on the educational learning path to get there.
I love it. That's phenomenal. Once again, your event is October 7th and 8th, Generative AI World, and then your website is gaiinsights.com. Is that the best way to get in touch with you, or what other way would you recommend people get in touch if you want to talk to
That's the
you?
best way, and we welcome people to come to events. It's going to be beautiful. It's peak leaf foliage in New England. So if you want to go
Yeah, it's beautiful.
up there, people want to come out bringing their kids for colleges, and it's also a great opportunity for the companies to get alignment on 2025. So we have 4 companies now already who bought full tables. They're saying the entire management team or AI team to get alignment, to shorten that period to alignment, shorten that time to value as they go into the 2025 budgeting season, which is just kicking off then in November.
Phenomenal. I love it. I'm going to be definitely hopping in those Monday night calls because I got to find my tribe here. It sounds like they're all hanging out without me. So thank you
Most
so
welcome.
much, Paul. Yeah, pleasure talking to you. And just want to say thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.